Atheism's not dead, it's surely alive. It's living on the inside and roaring like a lion. You know what I'm saying? There's like a theme that I have been sensing in the comments of my videos. There's always this battle, right, between people saying, why don't you post about atheism anymore? And why is it only that you can talk about atheism? Learn something new. And to that I say, I don't really care. I'm gonna talk about what I think is important, what I find interesting at the time. But there's like a bigger concept of atheism being dead. And I went down a rabbit hole of different things, and I'll explain how I got there, but I recently saw a video that was an interview Alex O'Connor did, and they sort of talked about this topic a little bit, and I'm gonna go through that interview and sort of give my opinion on some of the things that they said. I disagree with some things, and I wanna preface this by saying I have followed Cosmic Skeptic for a long time. Like, I attribute my understanding of free will. I don't think we have free will. I'm very much in the determinism camp, but I tend to not get too philosophical on this channel because that's just not my expertise, right? I don't consider myself like an intellectual that discusses all of these like very technical things in philosophy and in politics or anything. I'm just Jacqueline, right? I'm just this girl who's experienced things in life and likes to talk about my experience and how I've learned and how I've personally grown in certain areas and what matters to me. And now that I'm a parent, I talk about motherhood and how that's impacted me. And it's all just very personal. It relates to some people. It pisses some people off. It is what it is. I'm not trying to cater to any particular viewpoint. I'm just me, so I'm probably gonna piss, if you're a longtime follower of mine, I probably pissed you off at some point because that's just inevitable. You're never gonna agree with everybody on everything. So with Alex O'Connor in this particular interview, it's not that I necessarily disagree with everything, it's just there are certain things that I have a different viewpoint on, and I'm excited to talk about it. And pretty much my main concern is that he speaks about atheism as though it's not culturally relevant and that he's sort of growing tired of talking about it. But if you go to his YouTube channel, he still very much is still talking about it, so please just do keep that in mind as we move forward. I think it's sort of interesting as we talk about whether or not atheism is dead, at least as far as relevance goes. When I talk about atheism being dead, I see comments like that. I've seen that exact wording pop up before in my video. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go find it. I'm just gonna search it. Atheism is dead. Okay. I'm making a fool of myself right now, not finding it. Atheism has died. Atheism death. Okay, yeah, a couple weeks ago. I saw this in my comments, and not on like a particular video, but I was just going through like on my YouTube channel, there's a section where you can click on like all of your comments for everything. Not a very enlightening video, very basic. Atheism died, and now the new cultural trend is spirituality. And someone replied saying, me personally, I'm still a devout atheist. Atheism isn't dead until I am. And I got to agree with that. I mean, that's exactly how I feel. It's weird to say not believing in religion would ever die. Like, there's always going to be someone who doesn't buy into it. It's never going to be dead. It's not, I'm not going to get into it. It's not a belief system. Oh my God, I will not talk about this in this video. We'll be here all day. I'm not doing it.
I don't believe you.
Watch literally any of my, I've posted so many, I'm tired. What was this comment even on? Disproving Christianity, Jesus is a lie. Oh my good Lord, how long ago? Oh, 12 years ago? Dang, I've been doing this a long time. I'm old. You know what's funny? I've got this muted right now because I'm talking over it, but I used to pitch shift my voice up because I was insecure about having too low of a voice. So all my videos back in the day sound like I'm talking about, it's really weird. Anyway, side note, damn, 12 years. 1.2 million views though, not bad. I guess it had some time to accumulate that. Oh man, back when it was so edgy, I felt so edgy and cool. Now I'm just like this jaded, pissed off old woman, still doing the same thing. Get off my lawn. Get your Jesus off my lawn. And then of course I moved to Tennessee. Why do I live in the Bible Belt? Well, you know, Nashville is a music city. My husband's a musician. We could afford to actually buy a house here, whereas in LA, that was not gonna happen. And I'm closer to family. So all that sort of landed us right here, right smack dab in the middle of the Bible Belt, which is interesting because this entire video is about whether or not atheism is relevant, right? Is it dead? Is it even worth talking about? Do we like even care anymore? Well, shit, let me tell you what, when I live out here in the Bible Belt, it certainly seems relevant.
And there is a sense in which it makes sense to think, you know, are we really still talking about this religion stuff? Obviously, religion as a topic is perennial. It has existed almost as long as mankind has been able to think. But the specifically new atheism, the specific new atheism style of religious debate and applying rhetoric and analytic philosophy and the whole science versus religion like moment. I don't think that will ever quite go away in like academia, but it being on your television screens, that's definitely, you know, a thing of the past.
Here's the thing. Things go in and out of relevance all the time. Like there's popular things like, let's just talk about low-rise jeans versus high-waisted jeans. Now all these things when I was a kid are back in style now and it's cool. And sure, that's sort of like a silly example, but I do think people sort of, you know, wax and wane on things they want to talk about and what's relevant. And I can't, especially with the way religion and politics interact, it needs to be something that we talk about and keep relevant because it affects our life every day. I mean, I did just talk about living in the Bible Belt, but even if I take a step back from that, I live in, you know, America, the good old US of A, and you know, he is in the UK, and I think there's a little bit of a difference in what you experience daily. And I think I had a similar thing when I lived in LA. There was a certain like LA bubble, I call it, that I was in, where I was just around people who were accepting of, you know, LGBTQIA rights. And then you move to a place like this and you're like, oh, I see. We really do need to keep talking about this. Also, politics and things have changed in the several years that I've lived here. But there is a certain amount of, you know, you don't really understand how much it can affect other parts of the world or other people's lives when in your immediate vicinity, things seem to not really matter all that much, or are we really still talking about this? Where I'm living right now in my current day and fucking Trump being president, yeah, it's really relevant. And you have to talk about it. Because even if the politicians themselves aren't super religious, I mean, Trump likes to lie about being religious, it certainly is something that is used as a manipulation tactic. A mindset that I feel like a virus has permeated society in such a way that makes people think and do things that are terrible, but because they do it in the name of religion, they feel like they're righteous. And that lands us in a place of having to fight for equal rights, and women's rights, LGBT rights. Like it's never ending. And he talks about it being on TV screens. I don't remember ever that really being a thing. I mean, like, sure, back in the day, 10 years ago, way back when I was literally still posting videos on atheism, I do think the topic of atheism in and of itself was more focused on. I do think he's right in that sense, where people were like, the word atheist and all these things, and now it's more, to me at least, my priorities have shifted and I'm more concerned, less about whether or not people are religious, but what they do with that belief. And I still hold strong that shaking that up a bit and getting people to let go of some of their extremism, some of those fundamentalist values, if I can shake those a little bit, then I'm happy, right? Then that benefits everybody. I really don't care what they believe in when they go to bed at night. It doesn't affect me. Unless it does, and then we have a problem. And that's why I think talking about atheism or debunking religion, or at least getting people to start questioning things, right? Always will be important. And I mean, it's not, even though these arguments get annoying to have to repeat over and over again, like I get the same comments. Like a month ago, I found this one: atheism never debunks God because it only argues against man-made religion, not the living presence that created them. What are you talking about? Atheism doesn't make any argument against man-made religion. It's just the lack of a belief in God or gods. It's not in the business of debunking. It just is what it is, or rather what it isn't. So people don't even really understand what it means. Which for me, even though some of these things may seem silly to repeat on end for God knows how many years at this point. Amen, praise Jesus, you know what I'm talking about. I feel like you gotta do it because there's gonna just be new people that stumble across things that find it interesting. And I'm not saying you gotta do it as in he has to do it, because everybody has the free will, right? I won't go down that path, to make their own choices and talk about what they find to be the most compelling, right? But I do think that just making a broad statement as like, oh, this isn't quite as culturally significant anymore, I do think that is something that I have to disagree with.
You turn on any news station now, you look at GB News and Fox News, you look at Twitter, you look at whatever, and everybody's talking about gender and bathrooms, and they're talking about, you know, gay books in schools and stuff like this. And it's everywhere. And it's amazing to think that, you know, 10, 15 years ago, it was the same thing, but you open it up and everybody's talking about God.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about religion and evolution. It just seems so strange. And it makes me think, what's it going to be in 10 years?
I mean, I don't know how much of that I've ever seen on TV. I mean, sure, now there's like a social justice element to seeing things on the news. Although whenever it comes to like atheism and then evolution and all the debates around that to me was very much internet based. I never really saw that cross very much into mainstream media, at least not here.
There will be a lot of people saying, hang on, religion's still very important to me, and those kinds of things. Have you noticed, you said you have done really, but in since you started, a big difference in maybe the other side, because you were an outspoken atheist. Is there less pushback to you now?
I don't know if there's less pushback in the sense that like you say, there's always going to be people who do care about this kind of stuff, but it feels less culturally relevant.
I disagree. And actually, if someone asked me that question, which no one did, but if someone had asked me, I would say, actually, I think in some sense, I've gotten more pushback from a certain type of person. Like back in the day when I would talk about atheism, I knew it was a very hot button issue. It was going to anger almost everyone because I felt like it was just a topic that not a lot of people had previously discussed. And now when I talk about atheism, I'm getting more people, it feels like almost on the left, that are coming at me telling me that I'm being insensitive, right? It's almost like wokeism in defense of Christianity, which is so bizarre to me because Christianity, or a lot of Christians, I should say, have used their religion as a way to be bigoted in whatever sense. And this is something that I've talked about in many, many videos. So it's weird to see a belief system that can be so detrimental so vehemently defended because it's people's right to be religious, which is never something I've tried to take away. Like I said, I really truly at this point don't care if someone is religious, but if someone is using their religion to make an argument that hurts people, I will call them out and I will point my finger at that religion, especially if that religion states things in it that are terrible. And I have seen an increasingly growing number of people have some sort of like issue with that, like I'm being discriminatory almost against Christians, which, man, how would they feel if I started talking about Islam? Because that's another entire religion that people are so afraid to criticize because it seems like you're being prejudiced against a group of people. But I feel like it's so important to separate the people from the belief system. And it's so important to be able to criticize a belief system, especially if that belief system is harmful to people who are gay or, a woman.
It feels, I don't know, specifically with talking about philosophy of religion, I find it fascinating. Although I guess I'm less interested now in philosophy of religion in terms of arguments, these debates, Kalam cosmological argument, problem of evil. I'll still do it. It's interesting to a degree, but I do feel like I've done it so much that I'm beginning to grow a little bit tired of it because there's nothing new under the sun.
I mean, yeah, it's so bizarre because I agree with him. Not like I've delved much into these things. I mean, I've done like a video on Pascal's wager back in the day. I've done a lot of things, right? But it doesn't really matter because those videos get buried and the algorithm is what it is and you never know what people are going to see, what they haven't seen. Even if they become a fan of yours, they might not be aware of previous videos that you've made on some of these things and then not fully understand those concepts themselves. Or who knows, maybe there's somebody who's never come across you and then you decide to post a second video or a third or a fourth video on Pascal's wager, for example, and the algorithm decides to push that out and it changes people's minds and it causes a shift in the mentality on a certain type of, part of a religious ideology that makes people a little bit more skeptical, a little bit more willing to question the bigger picture, a little bit less likely to hang on to these ideologies that can become very fundamentalist and hurtful to people. So it's like, sure, it's not his responsibility to continue droning on and on about the same things that he's tired of. But for me, maybe I do find a certain value in continuing to spew the same information over and over again, because in my experience, it does continue to reach new people. I don't think I have the same audience that I had 12 years ago. I think the people that watched me are probably almost entirely gone and replaced with new people. And like I said, you never know what the algorithm is going to decide to bless. So I guess my only reason in wanting to play some of these clips isn't to tell him that he's doing anything wrong or should be doing anything differently, but I also don't want this idea in people's heads that it's silly, I guess, to talk about atheism, or it's useless to go over some of these same talking points over and over again. He can do what he wants, and that applies obviously to anybody. They have that free will. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Will I make the same joke 30 times in this video? I don't know. Let's find out. Stay tuned. Like and subscribe. All right. I just don't want this type of conversation to continue pushing this overall idea that atheism, or talking about some of these same things over and over again, is stupid for anyone to do or pointless for anyone to do, because I still find quite a bit of value in it, even though sometimes I even get a little tired of it.
It feels, as I say, less like it's, I guess less like it's a movement, like it might have done 10, 15 years ago. I mean, people were sort of build up the wall, you know, the separate the church and the state, and we're going to make people into atheists, and we're going to rid ourselves of magical thinking, and we're going to stop teaching, you know, children ridiculous nonsense in schools. And it felt like this thing, and people would call themselves activists.
Maybe we need to collect ourselves more. I mean, I know this is not exactly what is going to fix everything, but I remember back in the day, people were really collaborative and they would work together. And I remember watching The Amazing Atheist and just being so, well, initially very offended, but it worked. It got into my head. It started making me ask questions, and then I would see collaborations and all these people talking about it. And there was this sense of like, a feeling of like it's a movement. But also, to be fair, at that exact moment was when I was myself deconverting, so it all felt very personal and new, and I was sort of very firebrand about all of it. And yeah, that's going to fade in time with anyone talking about or feeling or thinking about the same thing for as long as I have.
You know, cool, that's great. But now when someone says that they're an atheist activist, I think, well, what does that really mean? What are you doing? Like, okay, there are certainly places in the world where atheist activists are still needed. In the UK, like, maybe you want to sort of get the Church of England out of the House of Lords. Fine, I agree with you, but it would hardly be like the most important thing in the world to me right now.
Okay, a couple things here, right? So he's in the UK. I live in Tennessee, right? I'm in the Bible Belt. So maybe, like I said earlier in this video, it might not feel as relevant to him to have activism, but here it does feel important. And I even feel, I've never called myself an activist. I've never felt like I'm, you know, protesting or marching in the streets, or, you know, even though I make videos, I don't really feel like I'm an atheist activist. It's never how I would have thought of myself. I just like to talk about these things because they weigh on my mind. And my YouTube channel is just where I word vomit everything on my mind. And initially, when I started doing this a long time ago, because I'm old, it was just a way for me to vent, because I was in a very Christian conservative area. That was the type of person that I was around in my life, and I did not have anyone I could talk to, so I turned on a camera. And turns out people wanted to listen, and that was a very strange turning point in my life. But even back then, at that moment, I don't think I would have called myself an activist. I just wanted to talk. I wanted to talk to people, connect with people, share my experience, hear other people's experience, make friends, maybe change a few minds along the way, maybe give a sense of comfort to people who are out there feeling the same way that I felt, but didn't, you know, think that they had someone to share that with. And it's very isolating sometimes, especially when you grow up around a bunch of very religious people. It's a scary thing, and it's a hard thing to break away from. And it was comforting to me to go online and find people that were talking about it. And I wanted to provide that same comfort to other people. And if I can change minds along the way and make it easier, great. As far as being like an activist, I don't really I don't identify. I don't know. Maybe I should. What do you guys think? Leave a comment and tell. Am I an atheist activist? That's fine. I don't care at this point. It might not seem culturally relevant in the UK, but if you take a look over here in America, we're headed right towards Christian nationalism. It's a scary thing. It's a scary thing, and I think we need to keep religion at bay. That's all I'm going to say there.
A friend of mine said just the other day, we were having a similar discussion to this. That's what made me want to talk to you about it. And she said that, yeah, when she thinks of talking about atheism, as she may have done 10 years ago, it actually just makes her feel bored. Whereas 10 years ago, it felt like we were achieving something.
I mean, I feel like I'm about ready to be a broken record here. God forbid I repeat the same things I've said a million times before. That's only what I'm advocating for in this video. I'm going to stop, I promise. Yeah, sure, I've felt that. You know, when you talk about anything for that long, it becomes a little bit boring sometimes. So you have to find a way to spice it up. I don't know, make it relevant to a world issue going on, make it relevant to your politics, make it relevant to someone who is being marginalized in the name of religion. It's not that hard to find stuff like that. And at least for me personally, that reinvigorates everything and makes me want to get up and be even louder about it. And now that I have kids, I have to worry about how they grow up and what they experience and what they hear from friends and what they hear in schools, and it's a whole new world of things for me to worry about and for me to want to fight for this. And people still clearly don't understand. Like I told you, I was going through these comments on my YouTube channel and I see stuff like this. Atheism is when you don't believe in a God. That's a belief system. I've only made 1,000 videos on that topic. That's, you know, not collecting stamps as a hobby. Being agnostic, however, is when you both don't believe or disbelieve in a God. More specifically, it's when you believe that existence of a God cannot be known or proven. It literally just means you don't know. It just means you don't have the information. I don't have the information. You don't have nobody has the information. I always have made the argument that literally everyone is agnostic. I have made a few videos on atheism versus agnosticism in my past. If you want to watch some of those, feel free. I don't want to take up any more time on this in this video. Just kidding, I'm reading another comment about it. If you believe that God does not exist, you still have a belief system. The only difference is that, unlike theism, which is an affirmative position, atheism is a negative position. So I'm kind of confused when you say that atheism is not a belief system. It's not a belief system. You not being another religion is not a religion. You not believing in Allah is not a religion. I just also don't believe in your God, okay? And this basic, very, 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 very basic understanding of what atheism is just lost on a lot of people. It's very hard for me to feel like it's so useless explaining these things when so many people don't even know how to properly define it. It's very frustrating to have to be a broken record on things as basic as this. So I will leave the philosophy and all of the intricate details of specific debates on religious ideology, I will leave that to people like Alex O'Connor. But I will be over here until the day that I die talking about what atheism even fucking is.
Today, that's probably how I feel about some of the progressive side as well. I don't really feel like having a go at Trump because it feels almost obvious to me and boring. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, you can imagine when it was difficult to criticize Trump even at the beginning of the Trump mania, because there's nothing you could say that wasn't a bit obvious and a bit cliche. Like, what are you going to say? Like, oh, you know, Trump's stupid. Like, you know, okay. I mean, and it might be, you know, it might well be true, but it's just difficult to say anything unique or insightful because everything is already so obvious.
It's obvious to you, okay? It's obvious to me. But he won 2 elections. I see people wearing MAGA hats all the time. It's not obvious to a lot of people. You can't just live in a world where if shit's not on your intellectual level, it's not worth discussing. Like, again, I will reiterate, I don't want to be here telling anybody what they should or should not be talking about publicly, but please do, you know, if you can find it in your heart to talk about things that seem obvious to you but not to other people, that would be great, because I believe you could do a better job at it than me. You know, you have a bigger audience, you have a bigger platform, you are really great with words and people trust you. You know, it would help, please, as someone living in America with Donald Trump as the president, I'm begging you to just consider, you know, if you want to make a video bashing Trump and you think it's just so obvious and stupid and, you know, who cares? I care. I would, please, can we start a petition or something? Like, if the smartest people in society feel like it's too stupid to talk about things like Trump when Trump is one of the most powerful people in the world, it scares me a little bit. Now, I understand how he feels. Exactly. I completely empathize with how he feels. But the truth of it is that we need people talking about how Trump is stupid. And just because it's, like I said, very, very, very obvious to you, it clearly isn't to enough people to cause pretty big problems. And those problems don't just affect Americans, okay? We are affecting the entire world right now. So just gonna throw out that, just please, any help would be much appreciated. Okay, thank you. Let's go.
This sort of the woke thing might get tired in in the coming years, or maybe already. What's next? And as YouTubers, do we then have to sort of be at the forefront of that?
Maybe. I have thought about that a lot. I mean, there are lots of topics that seem to be rising up in people's interests, including things like AI. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult to imagine AI having the same cultural relevance. I mean, it might be really important and talked about a lot, but it's not going to have the same frontline battleground of the pro AI versus the anti AI. It's not personal enough to people.
So that is interesting, and I don't know that we're quite there yet. It might become personal enough to people in the future if it starts getting a little bit more Black Mirror. But technology in and of itself is advancing in a way, or at least reaching parts of the world that it has not before in a way that is causing a very personal effect to people. For example, Gaza. And that's actually what brought me to finding this video of Alex O'Connor doing this interview. Even though it's a year old, I saw a short pop up on YouTube of him discussing the slogan "Free Palestine," and all he was saying was that people need to know what that means, because if you push people further on what does it mean, some people might not be able to answer. And the same thing goes with my body, my choice. It's very interesting because then some of the conservatives would use my body, my choice to be anti-vaxxers. So you have to be very careful with your slogans because people can flip them. And he was basically just saying, know exactly what your position is and don't sloganize politics to the point of, only holding the capacity for that slogan in your brain and not really being able to explain it if someone asks you, what does that even mean? What does that, what are the nuances there? So that's all he was saying, which I thought was very interesting.
When the whole position just becomes a slogan, I think we've run into trouble there. But if you were to pull one of them away and say, what's your position? And they just said, Free Palestine. And you said, what does that mean? What do you mean? And they're just like, it just means, Free Palestine, and that's it. And there was no more depth. You'd be like, I don't even understand what your position is here. But that's what happens all the time with something like My Body, My Choice.
When it comes to the next thing that feels culturally relevant, I do think, the fact that technology is reaching new parts of the world where people, in Gaza, for example, are able to take pictures and videos, and that's reaching us in a way that has never before. It is causing a cultural movement. But even when you dive into things like that might be at the forefront of what's important culturally at the time, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you talk about, you're still going to get people telling you, why are you wasting your time talking about that when there are bigger problems? There's more important stuff, that's not relevant enough, why don't we worry about something else? You're always going to get that. I mean, the small amount that I've spoken out about it has gotten that exact reaction. Like this person commented saying, hey, instead of being so concerned with Gaza, why don't we focus on issues here in America? Young people can't buy homes, people can't afford medical care, most young men are horribly depressed. Male suicide. I mean, listen, I have talked about quite a bit of those things in previous videos, but just so you guys know, you are allowed to care about more than one thing at a time, right? Just because you take one moment to bring awareness to one thing does not mean you don't give a shit about everything else. I think it's horribly toxic to say something like, screw Gaza, we have bigger issues. I mean, where is the humanity in that? We're only allowed to care about one thing at a time, guys. One thing at a time. And I managed to piss off both sides of the aisle, which is fantastic. Gotta love Instagram. Okay. It's hard to see things in the world happening and not feel something. I don't know how people do it. The news literally makes me lose sleep at night. And I have noticed that once I had kids, I was already heavily affected by the world. Like, you guys have been watching me maybe possibly for a long time. Some people have. And you've seen how emotional I can get sometimes over things happening in the world. But I will tell you, it has multiplied tenfold after having had kids. Especially if it's something that involves kids or kids suffering. I cannot. It haunts me, and I have a really hard time with it. I watched this entire interview, and at the end, they actually discussed having kids and how that could affect you.
Neither of us have children, and we spoke before about how when people talk about sacrificing themselves for their children, it's difficult to understand. I mean, I understand it in the sense that I know that people do that.
Yeah.
I've seen the passion. I've heard the stories of people who do that. I understand it in that sense, but I don't understand what it's like experientially to look at someone and think, I would, without even thinking about it, I would die for you. And I have a suspicion that maybe if we have children one day, we might find that the sudden shift that people often report, suddenly after having children, everything becomes about the kids. And that's what puts people off a lot of the time. They think, oh God, am I really willing to put everything else on hold? Do I want to do that? Oh, I don't know. And then they have a kid, and it's like, it's not even a question anymore. So yeah, of course. I mean, not everybody experiences this. You know, there are right. But a lot of people do report this. They say, no, everything in my life is now about this kid, and that's the way I want it to be, because I could never have even predicted the amount of love that I would experience for another person. I just had no idea that kind of thing was possible.
That's almost exactly word for word how I have described the way that I feel about my kids. I always knew that I wanted kids, always have had maternal instincts and knew that I would be able to love them very deeply, but I had no idea what that really meant or how that would materialize for me. And it's not something that I can even explain, but it is unlike any love I have ever felt. And the urge to protect is unlike anything I have ever felt. And yes, I would absolutely die in a moment for my kids, but what I'm going to do that's even harder is I'm going to live for my kids, and that means being a better version of myself, working hard on who I am as a person, trying to be better each day, and trying to improve the world that they're going to have to grow up and live in. And that is why I will never get tired of talking about the things in the world that are important, the things in my own country that are important, the politics that are important, and in my opinion, the toxic roots of religion and how that has manipulated people into doing horrible things and feeling good about it. It will never not be relevant to me. And after having kids, the way that I was impacted growing up from religion and the way that I've seen it hurt so many people is something that I will never let happen to my kids. And I'm going to keep fighting for them to be able to grow up in a world that isn't completely toxic with it. I will continue one by one trying to educate people on what it even means to be an atheist, because I think that's a very important thing. And just like anything that you post about, that you care about, there's gonna be somebody who says, why are you wasting your time talking about that when there's this thing over here to worry about? There's always gonna be that. Talking about atheism, talking about religion, talking about, things that someone might call woke. I mean, I will call them equal rights. I will never tire of that. I will never tire of screaming the same talking points over and over and over again, because I'm trying to protect people. I'm trying to protect my kids. And the importance of it for me isn't making people lose their faith or lose their religion or lose something that makes them happy. It's just making them respect differences, respect people that are different, and possibly even asking a few questions that might get them to take a couple of steps down the fundamentalist ladder. So I don't know, that's how I felt. I've had a lot of feelings come up when I watched this video, and although I can respect what they've said and agree with quite a bit of it, there were just certain things that I really wanted to make sure primarily don't worm their way into people's brains to get people to believe that talking about these things is irrelevant or not worth it. I think it's worth it, and I think it's never going to be not relevant culturally. And you can just stay subscribed, because I'm gonna keep, it's that one video I showed you was 12 years ago. I've been doing this probably around 15, 16 years now. I don't know, I lost count because I'm old. But I will continue this. I will still be talking about things like this until I am literally cut off from my Wi-Fi in the nursing home that I end up in. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. I enjoyed this topic because now I have a video I can point to when I continue to get comments about why do you even bother talking about this anymore? Because it matters to me. And whether that shows up in the form of me talking about Pascal's wager again or making fun of some silly TikToks that I saw, whatever it takes. Sometimes we need a good laugh, and sometimes those videos actually are the ones that change minds. That's how it worked for me. So I know it's possible. I do believe. Amen. Subscribe. See you guys in the next one. Bye.